Hey, it's Philip with Waffle Wednesday Games, and we're starting up this week's Mech-assmebly devlog. I'm kind of in a role with doing the equipment, which is a pretty core part of gameplay, so I think we're going to keep on that. While I'm eating the vegetables and doing the things that I consider less fun to develop on, and I'm on a roll for that, I'm going to stay there. So on this week, I think we're going to focus on basically transferring our newly created inventory screen and our equipment layout, predominantly the equipment layout, into our actual player and stats. The main task is making this equipment tree, which is going to be these sprites. Once we close this and the player locks in their equipment, it will recreate the mech from the ground up. So it's a little bit more complex than just dropping the sprites in, because we need to make sure they're scaled correctly. The hardest thing is going to be making sure the walking animator works. What this should translate to is when we set up our equipment, if I zoom in here, it should make our robot. So here we have the robot. This current robot sprite that I'm using is 128-bit, so it needs to be scaled. Or actually, I think I can make it just a larger robot. But what it should be is, you can see the rotating part is the upper body. So under these little nubbins on the side there, it would be where the arms would go. So we would add, probably from the aesthetic point of view, we would just add like some guns sticking out. That would be your fire points. And then there is a head on top. I think the head for now is always going to be locked to the body. Also something we could change, but... and then there is a lower part that rotates with your walk direction. So you can see there's kind of a hip underneath there. And then there is 2 legs below, and that's the lower body. So I might need to make some assets to make like testing assets for basically the actual equipment sprites. I think what I'm going to try to do is just take this and make items out of them, and then we can equip them. Right now I actually have an actual animator that basically increases the scale and position of the sprites. I might make my own code to do this so I can have better control over it. But yeah, so if you're a larger robot, you need to scale out how far the steps are and how big and small they shift. You can see they get smaller as they get closer to the ground there. And the other thing is that, and why I might remake this entirely, is if, say, you have feet or like a mech part that increases your speed, that needs to correlate correctly to the animator, because if the feet move too fast, then it'll look like you're just shuffling in place. So yeah, a lot of things that need to line up. The hardest part is getting these animations sorted and all the scaling. But yeah, I'm going to see if I can make these sprites into some items, and then we'll check back in. So I wanted to jump back in here. There's a couple things, but first, this just kind of really well illustrates the problems that I'm going to run into assembling the robot. So I've scaled up our robot because, like I've said, I've been kind of shifting asset sizes, and the one I've been using I can continue to use, but it should be larger based on its pixel size. So I've scaled it up, and you can see now I am the width of 2 tiles. Oh, and my collider hasn't updated yet, but I'm 2 tiles wide. But I have it hard-coded right now, the offset between the feet as well as their speed. So you can see he just does a little robot shuffle. His feet are really close together, so he just goes doot, 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 doot. So yeah, that's a problem. I need to basically make that dynamic and make it... I think that should be like a variable that's built into the hip, basically. But yeah, outside of that... So the problem I've run into is figuring out how to drive this, and I think I'm going to build my own class to drive this animation, because there'll be different types of animations. So we're not just going to have bipedal mechs. There'll probably be like one where it's like a little wheel tank base, and of course the hexapod from the previous video. Items in the game space have a pixel density that I have set at, I think it's 64 pixels per unit is what we've settled on. Items in the UI have a pixels per unit of 1, which just makes UI math easier from what I can tell. This is a problem because if I want to have it straight 1-to-1, the item in the UI is exactly the sprite that I use to spawn the mech. Then either I need 2 instances of the same sprite at kind of different renderings or different pixel density in Unity, or I need basically some way to unify this, and that's what I'm working on, why I went ahead and updated the size of this. What I did to do that, part of the process for that is I need to make them actually represent their size. So previously this is what like the foot component of this mech looked like. So this is 128, because I intended it as a 128-bit or pixel sprite, just to match it. I've kept the size the same. I've had to change that to this, so where I actually throttle its canvas down, but still treat it as basically the same bit density. The other thing is I've had to shift this because in our inventory, since it's block-based, I want this to be, since it can fit in 3 cubes, basically, I want it to fit in 3 cubes, so I've pushed it down and to the right a little bit. Which means I now need an offset for when it spawns in the world so that the world knows what its center should be. So I'm not treating the actual center of the sprite as the center, I'm treating the center of the actual drawing as the center. So that's updated, also contributing to our current robo shuffle. So yeah, that's what we're looking at. Oh, as another note, I went ahead and shifted back. Previously I've been using this 128-bit trash art. This is the first wall texture I made. It's really low contrast to the background, which is a problem. But you can see these wall tiles, and the upside of this is that it does up contrast for ore. So I have a algorithm for my Perlin Noise procedurally generated world where I can drop in procedurally generated ore, and this texture has a higher contrast, so I can show that off. Actually, if I look in the world, yeah, you can see the stripes of it that generate. Really easy to change it. Right now, I just got the function working and just said, oh, well, we'll have it be stripes for now, but it procedurally generates them, so they'll be the same in every world, given the same seed, and they can be regenerated or, you know, destroyed and checked. But yeah, just wanted to point that out since this new texture makes it a lot more visible. Hello! Alright, so we're back. There's been a couple changes. You may notice I am a ghost now. So, first of all, I fixed a bug. I think this should still look pretty correct. I fixed the bug with rendering, basically added a toggle for the items to choose whether or not they wanted to kind of like consider themselves radially. So now this doesn't do the thing where it points one arm up and one arm down. It just treats this, it basically doesn't run the algorithm to recompute on this. But the main thing I've been working on is, we see we've in real time assembled part of the robot. I've had to disable a bunch of the interaction components just because they are set up on an old system that expects a bunch of anchors. But you can see now we have our hip joint, which doesn't rotate right now. And then I can plonk in some fetuses, and and we're off. But yeah, the real pain is going to be, again, getting the animation going on these correctly. I think I'm going to set up my own system to do it. And then I'm also going to need something that essentially detects, probably from the core, from your base, what type of robot you are. And then it would basically start loading because the hexapod is going to have a different walking animation than a bipedal robot, and, you know, so we'll have something that detects in real time, and then we'll upload or, you know, choose a animator for it. I have my own thing now, so I'm not animating using Unity's animators. I have my own class that animates these myself, and you're about to see, it looks real goofy, but I've had to like hone it in this way. There is a variable in this that I don't really understand mathematically, but like this is how I've been testing. So if I go in here, I've been extending these so that you can see really precisely how well it fits. So I'll go, I'm the long strider. And the reason I do this is because if you lock on to one individual foot as it animates, you can see it stays in place relative to the terrain. The two things that are likely to change as we go through the game is step length, for one thing. So if I change this down to 1, we're going to snap back to being fairly short steps, and you can see they lock on really well. The other thing that we can fiddle with and make sure that it scales, because this is the thing that's probably going to change the most as your character's stats change, is I can change the move speed. So if I bump us down to 20, we go back in here, you can see at the peak of their actual movement, which is right when they're around the hip, they are staying in place relative to the ground. This is our code for doing this. And we do this animate leg section. I have this multiplier here because we're doing basically, we see how far the mech has traveled since the last update frame. And then we have the step length, which currently is programmed in through the leg. I like the idea of this being a variable of the leg. I might change this to being something that is based on the mech's overall size. And then I have this. From what I can imagine, this value should be 2, because your step length is how far in front and behind the mech your foot goes. So like a full stride should be twice the step length. That made it look like you were going real fast, and I don't really understand why. I'm guessing there's some true value that this should be. That's probably something that can be mathematically inferred from like a sine wave or some math that I've just overlooked. I would think this value should be 2 in order for the system to mathematically just perfectly line up with Unity's units and the animation. It needs to be around this value of 5.5. Don't really get why, but for my purposes, I'm pretty sure this will always work, because it seems like I can change the speed and it scales really well. I can change the stride length and it scales really well. I can't think of what else would really mess with this animation, so we're going to keep it. So I've discovered the way I'm implementing it now, I did not actually know it was this easy to add a curve to Unity, which I think is really cool. But you can make your own curve asset and sample it, which is what I'm using for the height. So I can make kind of like a crisp rise and fall clomping. So basically I adjust the scale based on this curve as the walking animation proceeds. But I have it blown up, so it looks kind of goofy right now. I can see I'm got this long, big, drawn-out animation just to see what the how the curve actually looks for it. All right, so we're in a really good spot. I've just done a round of bug fixing just to make sure everything kind of is copacetic. But yeah, I think the walking animation looks about where it was before this, where it was like just a custom or a base Unity implemented animation. But we're controlling it ourselves now, and it's much more customizable and really scales off what we have. So you can see I can walk around, but every time we close inventory, we rebuild. I can still move. I'd like to add locks to this. So basically, yeah, if you're a mech that's supposed to have legs and you don't have legs, it'll shut you down, so you have to open and reassemble. Okay, so I've got these 2 old sprites here. I've got a little mecha head and a foot, and I'm just gonna see if I can go through the pathway to implement these as objects, and that'll kind of bring up if there's problems. I'll see them clearly. So we're gonna see if I can set these up as equipment items, and if I can, then we are pretty good to go for just kind of creating art and making it into an equipment. So yeah, let's time-lapse this. Okay, I think that should be everything. We are gonna see if we can load in and use this. So the 3 steps I have to do is I have to make the item definitions. I have to add them to the world object registry, which is essentially the system that just associates a string with it so that I can load and reload, and it doesn't confuse what item is what in the save file. And the third thing is I have to drop it in a chest, which, yes, we've got all of them here. So you can see it's a really tiny mech, and it did invert them, so that's a good sign. So we can see they loaded in. So I'm going to take these items. They are 1x1s, which I think this will probably be a testing thing and just a testing thing. I think I'd like to make anything that's stackable is a 1x1, so anything that's equipment will never be a 1x1, but it's a good testing item. So I'm going to pop out this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and boom, we've got our legs. I don't know which one's left and which one's right. Okay, this one's left. That one's right. Oh my god, that's so cool! Okay, alright, so we're working. It shouldn't have adjusted my collider size at all. Yeah, because I haven't implemented that. But yeah, our animations look solid. Alright, I've got a couple updates. So you can see I'm a ghost, and the more important thing than being a ghost is the fact that I cannot move right now. So I've gotten some of our basic stats set up, including move speed, but that creates an issue in that when the world spawns, I have no equipment, so I'm gonna have to make some starting equipment. But in the meantime, since I have no move speed, I went ahead and added a context menu setting so I can set my speed to 10, just so I can slowly crawl over here, which I guess I didn't have to do. I could have manually set it somewhere else. But we can pick up some equipment, so I'm going to start with these guys. And I'm going to set this there and there. The other thing, and you can tell there, although it's a little bit more apparent with the bigger robot, is that I've made it so that our nodes were collapsible. This actually took more work than I'd like to admit. Just working with the actual node system and making their transforms actually fit to like an origin was just a pain. But anyway, so now that we have, you can see when we equipped, it set our basic stats up. So now we can move a little more reasonably. The other thing that changed is if I shoot a single divot here, you can see I can fit in here because my collider is there. I'm also trying to think what the best way to show it is. If I take our larger mech items out, go in here and unequip these guys, and I pop in our larger mech stuff. Actually don't need the head. I don't know what stats to assign to the head yet, but we'll figure that out later. You can see we've zoomed out because the larger mech, I didn't want it to take up so much of the screen, so when you have a larger mech on screen, you visually zoom out. The other thing is you'll notice that my mech collider is updated, so I am too large to fit into 1x1 gaps. All of these are configurable as long as they fit in the given slots, so these small nodes do fit in there and they will flail along at the bottom. And I made our mech speed a stat of the legs, so you can see I'm much slower now, but it also slightly reduced my collider size. I don't think enough to fit in here, but yeah, the legs give a little bit of hitbox. So the thing that I'm not sure about is I can actually mix and match, which is a big part of the game, but you can see the legs move at a speed necessary to make them kind of fit against the ground in how fast they have to go to accomplish the given speed. But you end up with this weird stilted running where it kind of looks like you're skipping. And that's going to be a complex animation issue to sort out. I'm not really sure what that should look like. Ultimately, like, to feel correct, you should have to be limping, but I'm not sure if that's something that I'm ever going to be good enough to actually implement. But yeah, for now, you can mix and match, but it looks a little funny. If I pop these out and we grab the hexapod. Well, I'm not going to be able to show the animation yet, but you can see we are there a little bit, so we're just crawling along. So I wanted to set it up to where you could have, like, if you hadn't fully completed a robot, you could kind of scrap your way along with a single claw. But I'm going to run around real fast and collect the full hexbot. Okay, so if I go ahead and disassemble, pop this in, we have our hexapod robot, little articulated limbs. I am not the most proud of this this programmer art for the hex robot, especially the head looks just wonky. But yeah, we're a little hexapod. I'm thinking there'll be little stat bonuses if you're a hexapod, or there'll be some unique actions. But I think I can do most in-legged like robots, so I can make an octobot or a little quadruped bot. But yeah, really excited about this. Pretty customizable. Happy with how the inventory is coming along. The next thing is gotta be weapons. We're gonna make some blasters, and that's gonna be really exciting. We'll have little mount points for them. But yeah, looking good. Crabby. Everything is crab.